Hello everyone, I am your host Ingrid Thompson and welcome to So You Want to Start a Business episode number 81. Our guest today is Kathryn Binkley. In preparation for my interview with Kathryn, I wanted to listen to just a couple of her podcast episodes just to get to know her a little better. I ended up listening to every single one of them. Kathryn is smart and generous. She's warm, friendly personality and has created a fabulous business. During the interview, we were talking about how easy it is to be distracted by the next thing and then the next thing and other things. And I actually described it as being a bit like a flea or a frog. And here's what she had to say about that.
When you're hopping around, it's like you're starting to build a bridge, but you don't build the bridge all the way before you start building another. And you end up with all of these half-built bridges. And ultimately, you're not going to get to the other side if they're all half built. You've got to finish one. So what's the fastest way? It's not to build 10 bridges at the same time. It's to choose one, fully build it, see if it worked, if it was enough, and then add another to get, more people across the other side to work with you.
What a terrific way to describe how that hopping about impacts business. Kathryn has a gentle style that just makes what she says even more powerful. There is some solid business wisdom packed into this half-hour conversation. Pricing, mindset, energy, getting started, staying on track, and so much more. As always, there is no advertising on this podcast. This episode is brought to you by my book with the same name as the podcast, So You Want to Start a Business. Head over to wherever you buy your books online for the Kindle or the physical book. The full audio version is being made available through the podcast. You might want to cycle back through some recent episodes where I'm reading chapters of the book. There's more on the way. If you prefer to read an actual extract, head over to www.thestartupsteps.com. There's about 20 pages there waiting for you. If you're listening for a while and you've read the book and you've worked through some of the activities, maybe you're ready to have a chat with me about your business goals. Are we connected on LinkedIn? Send me a note and connect and then ask me some questions or send me an email, ingrid@healthynumbers.com.au. Whether you're launching a brand new business or you're taking your existing company to new heights, I am here to help you turn your dream into a viable reality. Anyway, enough from me right now. Let's listen to what Kathryn has to say about starting and running her own business. Are you ready? Let's go. Hello, and here we are today with Kathryn Binkley. Hello, Kathryn.
Hi, how are you? Thanks so much for having me.
Oh, thank you for joining us. And it's late night for you. Well, not that late, but 8 o'clock late night for you, midday here. Winter there, summer dripping heat here. So, yeah. Okay, so Kathryn, let's get into this. What is your business? What business are you in?
I'm a business coach for female entrepreneurs with service-based businesses who are growing their businesses online. So I talk a lot about marketing and mindset.
Marketing and mindset. Woohoo. So when did you start your business?
In July of 2014.
So you've been in business for a little while. And
Yes.
what did you want from, why did you start your business?
For me, it was really a couple of things, and you've probably heard it before: freedom and flexibility. For freedom, I really wanted to get out of this pattern where my career and my personal life were competing with one another. I wanted to be able to have both on my terms. So that's really why I went out on my own. And then, of course, with that, the flexibility to work when and wherever I want with whomever I want.
Yeah, that's so many people want that, don't they?
Yeah.
It doesn't always quite work out that way, though, does it? It's
Not always.
Yeah, we sort of we skim across that surface a bit, don't we? So so you wanted that freedom and flexibility. Was there anything else you wanted from day one? Like you wanted this business was going to give you anything that in addition to that?
I really wanted to be able to make an impact, but I will say that my vision when I first started was very different than it even is now. I thought that I was playing big, but I realized that I could play a lot bigger.
Yeah, and in fact, I was just reading your reflections from 2018, and that was one of your big ones, is that no matter how big we think we're playing, there's so much bigger to go. We'll talk about that in a moment. Okay. So you started this business a few years ago, but where was that point, that in-business moment? What was that when you went, okay, so now I am a business?
Well, okay. So for me, I actually started my business while I was still working full time. And
Right.
so I was doing a little on the side, growing the business. And there was a moment when I decided to go all in and I invested in my own coach. So I didn't start
Mm.
out as a business coach. My background was in marketing
Mm-hmm.
and I was doing marketing for clients. I was helping them with the strategy and helping them implement, and in the agency world had a team doing that, but in my business more so consulting.
Mm.
I decided, well, first of all, I heard from a friend that I would make a great business coach. And so I started to explore that and then was like, well, look at this. I'm going to hire my own and really see what this is all about. And that moment when I actually invested in my business, that's when it all became real. And there was all of a sudden no plan B. I knew that it was going to all work out. I was committed to it fully.
Yeah, that's such an interesting point you make there about not having a plan B. Like is that something that people do that kind of gives them an escape clause? Is that?
Oh yeah, for sure. When you have one foot in, one foot out, and you always have this out. Like if
Mm,
it doesn't work
mm,
out, then it's
mm,
okay. I've got this other option, but
mm,
not until you get serious and get rid of all other options and tell yourself there's no looking back. There's only one way. My
mm,
success is inevitable.
mm. And that's part of what you work with the mindset for
Yeah,
people. Fantastic.
absolutely.
So you were feeling like this. You'd made this transition partly working in the business, working on your own. How did you know that customers wanted what you were going to offer? That yours would be different and that there were people there that wanted your offering?
Well, I think that first of all, I'm grateful because I had been doing the marketing and the consulting in my career for a while and had seen what's possible and what that demand looked like from other business owners.
Mm,
It was easy for me to pivot and niche down when I went out on my own to only females. But part of that was literally just having conversations with them
mm,
before I made that final decision that this is who I'm going to work with.
mm,
I started posting and asking for people to hop on calls with me, gave them some coaching in exchange for free, and just ask them questions. I wanted to hear from them what their struggles were and what their goals were, and made sure that this is something they really needed help with. And I heard over and over and over again that they got into business to do what they love and quickly found out that all of a sudden they had to learn this whole thing about marketing and of course so many other things, right? We have
mm.
to do it all when we're a solopreneur. So there were all these things that they didn't know, and it was obvious that they needed that help.
Yeah, and it's just really by listening and then finding where is your niche. We say niche, but you
Okay.
niche. Yeah, where is
Yeah.
that niche? Yeah. So you're in your job and then you stop being in a job. How do you fund the early days of that business?
Well, so of course, while I was still working, I invested my personal funds to get things up and running. Luckily, with my type of business, I didn't have to invest too much. And actually, that biggest investment for me was that very first investment. It's not the biggest to date now. I've made larger investments, but that big investment to start with of investing $10,000 with a business coach was huge, but it was a personal investment.
Yeah.
And so I just committed and said, okay, I'm going to make this back. Now, after that point, again, I'm grateful and blessed because it's my clients who have funded my continued growth. And I've just made sure that I'm bringing in the clients as I grow. And sometimes that's meant uh, not, I don't want to say that and make anyone think that they should hold out for the clients, because sometimes you have to set a precedent, a new normal for yourself and say, okay,
Mm.
no, now I'm going to start investing in this additional thing. And that means that I need to bring in some additional clients and put a healthy dose of pressure on yourself. Just increase that normal, right?
It is, and it's such an interesting point because that is where being in business is different to the personal financial situation. Sometimes the money has to be spent in order to generate the business,
Oh,
whether
yeah.
it's advertising or marketing or investing in yourself first rather than being able to save up for it through having the acquisition of clients, because the one is so dependent on the other. Mm.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'd love to add that, in my agency days, I had, on behalf of my clients, planned and implemented multi-million-dollar advertising budgets and spent like $30,000 on a single ad in a magazine. And so pretty early on, that blew my mind. Like money mindset wise, I was like, that's a lot of money. That's some people's entire annual salary on a single ad, right? So in a way, I at least had been conditioned to understand the difference in investing a large amount because of the return on investment and knowing the difference in investing wisely.
Yeah. And those businesses knew that by spending that money on that one ad, and in fact, that ad probably was part of a suite of a whole campaign.
Oh, yeah.
That was thousands and thousands of dollars, that
Yes.
the return overall definitely is worth it.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, we wouldn't go into that investment without doing the research and having a pretty firm understanding of what's possible.
Of what's possible, indeed.
Yeah.
Okay, so how do you find your new clients? Where are they? How do they find you?
Okay, so there are so many ways, and I think that the answer could be different for everyone. And I do believe in a custom approach. For me, I'll say early on it was referral based. That's how I started out until I built up a healthy amount of content marketing, putting content out that talked about the what and the why, but not necessarily the how. I didn't give it all away, but I gave a lot of value away, and there's a difference. And so I did a lot of just putting content out, interacting, engaging. And that helped me start to gain some visibility, but it wasn't that alone. For me, there's a funnel in place so that when someone does sign up for something or join something that I have going on, there's a process. And so now I can drive Facebook ads or something like that and put a spend behind my campaign, knowing that there's this process in place.
Step by step by step, how people come to be part of you. Yeah. So in the early days, so you've got this huge budgets that you worked with in your agency, and I can imagine the fees that your agency charged were probably commensurate with the sorts of budgets that were being. How did you decide your pricing strategy?
That's really interesting, because I remember thinking back to myself about what the agency was charging for my time. And I specifically recall going through this thought process myself of saying, okay, if a client hired my agency to write up a strategic marketing plan, not implement it, just to come up with the strategy, they would easily pay a minimum of $7,500, and I would likely be one of the only ones to do any work on that. And so the agency was getting paid $7,500. Meanwhile, take my salary and times that by, I would say I put in quite a bit, like 40 hours worth of work, but still the comparison was crazy. So I started out kind of working through that. But at the same time, I wasn't 100% comfortable charging that same rate right away. There's a lot of mindset that comes up. And for me, it's like, okay, I know that I'm worth that, but that's just different when I'm all alone and by myself and I'm the one selling, because that's the other thing. I had a team of people selling for me before. So selling myself was a little bit different. They were selling me, but now I was selling myself. And so with that in mind, I knew what I was worth, but I started with a price that was easily half that, and that I felt very confident and comfortable with. So that I did walk into every sales conversation figuring out, okay, how am I going to walk into this conversation without second guessing and doubting myself and letting all of that show up, because I didn't want any of that to come through.
Yeah, because how we say that price is so important, and how we stand and how we look and all of the body language and the tone of voice that goes with that is so vital, isn't it?
It sure is.
Yeah. So having thought that through, getting the mindset, getting it in your body as well as. And is that the sort of work you do with people, Kathryn? You help people work through that sort of thing?
Yeah. So now it's a little different in that I don't actually write the strategic plan for them, but I coach them on how to do that and walk side by side and do it with them. I like done with you versus for you, so that you learn, you grow, you learn that skill set. And learn how to make those decisions for yourself and not just hand it to you. You're actually able to reproduce things and learn from it as you go.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think with that pricing strategy, it was interesting because while I cut that, as I sold like every few clients in, I would just raise my price by a little, enough that I felt comfortable. It wasn't a big enough leap that it was a totally different price to me, and just kept raising that price until I was where I felt like I should be based on all the experience I had over the prior decade.
I remember somebody saying about raising price up until the point where you get a lot of no's. And if you keep raising your price while people say yes, then you're clearly in the right, it's clearly the right amount of money. And then when people start to say no, then that's where it's reached a point of capacity or threshold or whatever that would be.
Yeah.
So Kathryn, exit strategy, and this is a bigger question than just, like how do you end this or how do you wrap this up? How do you actually take yourself out of the business as well? What's the succession? If somebody can't get you, what do you do if you want to take a break, go on holidays, take some time off? Yeah.
So I've built a team over time, but it's really been a transition because at first I built a team of a few people that I would outsource specific things to. Now I'm actually growing a team myself. And while I don't plan to leave this business, sell this business, or anything for a really long time, I don't know how long I'll work. I have a lot of time to go. I do have a plan, and that is to step more and more into the visionary role. And I've got an assistant that's my right hand gal, and I'm grooming her and teaching her to step into more of an integrator role so she can run the business. And so there's actually a book called Rocket Fuel that goes into this more in depth. So feel free to check that out if you want to learn more about these two roles. But the visionary is the person who dreams it up. They figure out what's going to happen, and the integrator makes it happen. And so that's my plan.
So I think that a really big secret for people is to find an integrator. If you're an ideas person, is to get that person on board, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. And the thing is, I have always been the integrator for other clients. And so it's not that I'm not good at that skill set, but I just have to step into the visionary role in my business because it's my business now. And I really need to separate that. Otherwise, I can't scale it to the point that I want to.
We might come back to that actually.
Okay.
So what's one thing in reflection that you wish you had done differently back at the beginning? Maybe, sort of back either when you really went all in or, somewhere around that. Is there something you wish you'd done differently?
I wish that I would have invested earlier in my business. That's really the only thing that I regret about getting a business coach is that I didn't do it sooner. That changed everything. And the growth of my business immediately, it just started taking off. And so I wish I would have done that earlier.
Yeah. And this is a similar-ish question, but what do you wish you'd known from the start? If somebody could have told you, and it might be the same kind of thing, but is there something that you wish you'd known from the start?
Yes. For me, what I wish I would have known is the importance of mindset. I had always been an avid learner, loved to learn and read and consume content. Personal development was huge, read tons of things in business, marketing world. And I even had a psychology degree. That was actually my background before I went into marketing. And it fits so nicely together. But I didn't realize that as much as I knew what I was doing, I didn't realize how much I was going to get in my own way. And that was really tied back to that business coach investment and having that other person to kind of call some of that out and help me work through it. But yeah, I wish I had known how important mindset was.
Can I cycle back to what you said about the integrator?
Yeah.
Because it sounds to me like that's tied up with this as well. Because a lot of people who start their own business are actually really good integrators. And I hear people all the time, maybe you do too, say, I do this really well. The company gets paid this much money. Maybe I should be doing this for myself. But it's different then, isn't it, when you're in your own business?
Oh, it's totally different.
Yeah.
Completely different. You don't really understand all that. You don't understand the difference in working on the business and in the business.
Mm.
And there
Mm.
is such a huge difference, because as much as you love doing what you love to do, working on the business means doing less of what you love,
Yes.
or bringing someone on to handle some of those things so you can just operate and do the things that you love.
Yeah, so is integrator a language from that rocket fuel book? Is that a word
I'm
they
not
use,
sure
or
if
is
that's where
that your word?
I've heard it in many places. I'm not sure if that's where it originated, but it is used in the book.
Yeah. See, it's and I know this is a slight deviation from, but it's this idea of when you start a business, it's because you love doing what it is. You know, you're working, as you say, in an agency. Lots of people working in agencies want to start their own business. Photographers, lots of people in the fitness industry want to go out and start their own. And it's because they love the thing they're doing, but it's so much more when you're actually in your own business.
Yeah.
See, I would never discourage somebody from starting their own business, but I think this is part of the biggest it's one of the biggest mindset shifts for people, is to go away from being the technician. And I know the E-Myth tackles this. I mean, that's the whole premise of the E-Myth, isn't it? That you move away from being the technician and to actually being the visionary. And for some people, maybe being the implementer or the technician in someone else's business is a great place to be.
Yeah, absolutely. Some people, that's the perfect place to be. And I actually, for some time, remember speaking with the owners of the agencies that I work for about this idea of being an intrapreneur. Like, I had that entrepreneurial spirit, but I was using it inside of their business and supporting their vision. Eventually, I decided I wanted to do that for myself. But there's a place for that.
There is, and it's honourable as well. I think, today
absolutely.
everybody wants to be in their own business, but I think it's important for there to be honour to being part of somebody else's business. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay, we diverted there. So who, apart from yourself, and you've mentioned your coach and you've mentioned the people that you've worked for in the agencies, but who has been of greatest assistance to you and your business?
There are so many people, and of course, they're coaches and mentors. But really, if I look back to what inspired it all for me and what helped me see what's possible, that I could do anything that I wanted, and to actually see that role model, it may sound cliche, but it's my mom. From a very early age, my dad left. I saw her operate as a single mom. I was the oldest of 5 kids. I saw what she went through. She taught me through all of that I could do anything I wanted and that I didn't need anyone to do it. And that's a big reason why I had this desire and craving for independence, because she instilled that in me. But then growing up, eventually she started her own business. And it wasn't until I think it was while I was in college that she started her own business. But I saw her go through that journey and that transition. And it was truly an inspiration. And I don't think that I would have gone down this path without seeing all of that unfold.
Yeah, mothers are pretty amazing, aren't they? And to give you that, can't do without them. And to have that that model that it's possible, that and even at that stage of life, because if you're in college, you can figure out how old your mum was at that stage, and so it doesn't have to be something you do at an early age, or you pretty much do what you want anytime. Yeah,
exactly.
Wonderful message. Where do you get good feedback, Kathryn? Who gives you feedback?
I'm a big believer in feedback, and I believe it can come from anyone and everyone around you. Of course, there are coaches and mentors. Your clients give you incredible feedback. Anyone that you interact with, I strongly encourage that you welcome feedback. You don't take it as a negative thing, but really know that there's truth to all feedback, and take it, take it constructively, because it's going to only help. So I don't know. I
You
think,
can have a little cry in your pillow for a little while, can't you? And then take it on board and
yeah,
do
yeah,
something about
yeah.
it.
Sure. That's right.
Yeah,
That's right.
sometimes, and I think the feedback, particularly if it's unintentioned, that somebody gives you some feedback and it's, it's their interpretation of what you did and completely unintentioned to the way you intended it. So, yeah,
Yeah,
I think,
I've
but it's
definitely
useful.
had a cry. Oh, for sure. I've definitely cried over feedback. So that's fine. And I mean, one thing I will say about that is to keep in mind that the feedback you get is filtered through all of their limiting beliefs and mindset issues. And so there are times where even my husband gave me some feedback that I had to take and see, okay, where's the good in this? What can I use? But then also filter out all the stuff that I realized that was just his bad mindset. Like he's got some mindset work to do.
Yeah, you've got something to do as well. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So people come to you all the time. So this question is for, because a lot of people aren't in the position to answer this question. But if somebody said to you, oh, I'm thinking about starting my own business. And I mean, obviously people come to you deliberately because of the work you do. But what do you say to them in general? How do you respond to that?
So if someone is very early in their business or just starting a business, one of the biggest pieces of advice that I give them is to imagine right now what they would be like once they're successful, once they've met all of their dreams, once they've created this business, and to start now by making decisions as if they're already that successful person, whatever that means to them. And that looks differently for everyone. But when you operate from that place and make decisions from that place as if you're already successful, things can happen a lot quicker for you.
Yeah. And that's back to that idea of yours that you think you're dreaming big, but you can actually go bigger. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So 3 characteristics that you have that make you successful in business.
Okay. So I think the grit that I have to never ever give up and to always take every failure as a lesson and not truly failure, and to keep going because there's no such thing as failure if you keep going. Also, my insatiable desire to learn. I can't ever get enough, and I will always be a student of the industry and continuously learn. And then I think the futuristic or strategic characteristics that I have, I think that's ingrained in me. It's the strength that I have and plays well with what I do, but always planning and thinking ahead and thinking about the future versus staying stuck in the past or even the present.
Yeah, fantastic. I love that word grit. It's yeah, somebody introduced me to it recently, and it describes it, doesn't it? It just
It
is.
does.
It's
Yeah.
grit. Yeah.
Yeah.
And are these the characteristics that are essential for someone starting, or do you think, because this is where you are sort of 4 years down the track, are the characteristics the same for someone getting started?
I think absolutely. All of these are essential from the very beginning. I think if I were going to add anything to that, I would just say the ability to really focus and follow through, which I guess relates to grit, of course, that perseverance. But I think there's a difference in, early on second guessing yourself and wondering. And I just really encourage folks to decide on something and see it through. And I mean, be willing to adapt if it's not working, but at the same time, don't give up too early.
Yeah. And I think that's particularly true of your marketing expertise, because what I see so often when I work with clients who are, already in a business or in those early days, and they try this for 5 minutes and that's not working, let's try this. So we jump from this coach to that coach to this Facebook to this Instagram to videos to, it's this being like a flea and hopping or a frog.
Exactly.
And, and so what's your comment to that, particularly around the marketing of a business and the trying to, attract clients and grow?
Well, I've heard it described in a few ways. And one way that I like to talk about it with my client that I've heard others use as well, so it may not be a new metaphor for it, but when you're hopping around, it's like you're starting to build a bridge, but you don't build the bridge all the way before you start building another. And you end up with all of these half-built bridges. And ultimately, you're not going to get to the other side if they're all half built. You've got to finish one. So what's the fastest way? It's not to build 10 bridges at the same time. It's to choose one, fully build it, see if it worked, if it was enough, and then add another to get, more people across the other side to work with you.
That's fantastic. I like that one. I hadn't heard that. I really have not
Okay.
heard that one before. So that's a lovely one. It is, because it's so infuriating to see. And this, because we're looking for the quick answer, we're looking for the quick result, is the reason people get halfway across the bridge. And yeah, that's such a good analogy. Thank you. Anything else we'd like to add, Kathryn? Thank you so much for this conversation. It's been fantastic. Anything else? Because our audience are people who are perhaps in that early stage. So, feel free to shamelessly promote yourself at this point. And I know that you tend to work more with people who are a little bit further down the track, but I think you have a particularly resonating style, and there's something lovely about the way you describe things. So I'm sure some of the listeners would be keen to connect with you and learn from your experience. And yeah. So, but is there anything else you'd like to add at this point? Thanks.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. I think, we've already touched on it a couple of times, but it's worth reiterating. And maybe it's because it hit so close to home for me. But what I really thought was my vision early on, and when I really thought I was playing big, I just over time continue to see that there's more. And so stretch yourself. Don't stop dreaming. Don't settle. You can have it all. So if you think you're playing big, know that you can probably play a little bit bigger. And so keep pushing yourself. And if you want to hear more about that, then feel free to join me over on the Lit Ladypreneur podcast. Follow me on Instagram at Alight, ALYGHT. And I'll, if you're in the service-based arena and you're trying to book in clients, I'll share a link with you where you can get a free guide to, it's called 7 Steps to Fully Booked, and it goes through some steps to help you book in more clients. So I'll share that link so that can be dropped in the show notes.
That we will. We'll do that. We'll do that straight away. Thanks, Kathryn. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening. Isn't it a terrific interview conversation with Kathryn Binkley? If a podcaster were allowed to have favourites, this just might be one of my favourites. Kathryn is a great example of building one bridge at a time. One of the things that I notice about many of the people I work with is it's easy for them to lose focus. Most of the people I'm working with are smart, professional, and yet when it comes to getting everything done in business, they struggle. Kathryn is methodical and focused on getting things done as defined in her strategy. What did you think about the visionary and the implementer discussion? Have you heard about that before? Makes me think of when I was in the corporate world. I used to say that I was a really good second lieutenant. Now, I'm not actually sure what a second lieutenant does, but it seemed to me to be the person who did things for the leader and the team, got things done. Now I'm the leader and the implementer. Like Kathryn, I'm growing my team. Are you growing your team, or are you still doing implementing and strategy? What are your takeaways from this interview? What have you learned from the conversation? I'd love to hear from you. Let me know, ingrid@healthynumbers.com.au. For everyone listening, whether this is the first episode or whether you've been with us for some time, I truly believe that whatever it is you're dreaming about can become real. These podcasts are designed to inspire, educate, and inform about what it takes to start, create, and grow a business of your own. We truly believe these podcast interviews provide terrific value. And if you agree, please leave your comments and a 5-star rating of the podcast over on iTunes. We all know that this helps spread the word and spread the show with more people. Thank you for that. What questions do you have? How can I help you? Have you read the book? We're going to set up a So You Want to Start a Business book club, something between a mastermind, an accountability group, and a book club. And in fact, by the time you're listening, it might already be underway. If you're interested, please let me know on my email or through LinkedIn. I reply directly. I answer all my emails myself because it's so important for you to have what you need. As always, with these podcasts, we say ideas without action. Well, they're just that, aren't they? They're ideas. What action are you inspired to take today? Till the next time, thanks for listening.